Welcome to another episode of REI Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either REI Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Diana Lizarazo, and today's guest speaker is Keith Maxie. On REI Behind the Scenes, we get to talk about their project. We'll get to ask questions about their project. We'll get to hear about the numbers. And the most fun part is hearing about the problems they've encountered, how they solve them, and what they would do next time. So if you guys are excited, I don't see Keith here, so we'll wait on that. But that actually works out because I have some exciting news for you. So if you're ready to be a part of something really big, I have a social networking platform for real estate investors, mentors, and professionals to help build and find credible and trustworthy people. So I'm so excited to bring this out. We actually will be, so if you're an early adopter, you definitely want to join and experience all the amazing features that we have to offer. And you also get to see what it is and get to experience being able to share your experiences and have a place where it is actually real estate investors. You can create discussions. So I'm so excited to hear. So if that's something you're interested in, it's realestateinvestorfam.com. So I'll definitely be sharing it with you. And I can see Keith is on. So let's get him on. Let's send Keith some hearts. Let's get him on here. Oh, actually I don't see him on here. Let me get here. Here. Keith, I think you aren't either on your phone. You have to be on your phone, or your what is it called? The app isn't updated. So if you can quickly just jump off and update your phone, because I can't invite you, then we can get you on here. But while we wait for Keith, what is everyone up to these days? What are you seeing in the real estate world or the real estate investing world? Is it making you nervous? Are you taking action? How are you making yourselves, let's just see, how are you making yourselves be able to take action and not stress about what's going on? What makes you feel comfortable? Okay, I can see Keith is here. Are we struggling today? Let's accept that one. Got you on. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Diana, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
It's a wonderful day in the world out there. A little hot. Air conditioning units are breaking down, but we're trying to get them fixed.
Yep, the things of the heat, right? It's like when you definitely need them is when they decide that they need to break down.
Exactly. It seems like everybody turns them on all at the same time as well. And then you get all the calls.
Exactly. So let's start with just telling the viewers a little bit about yourself. What's your real estate strategy? How long have you been in it? Anything else you'd love to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing Airbnb units. So I work in both kind of areas. One is arbitrage, another one kind of related with ownership, but I also do management. So what this means is that in arbitrage terms, what I do is I go out, I rent a property, I list it up, I set it up, furnish it, list it out onto Airbnb. I pay the owner their rent that they would normally make from me, but whatever the difference is, I get to keep. So, I tend to look for really nice, professionally renovated properties so that I can get the maximum return off of that. And then I also do management. So for some select partners, what I do is I actually operate their Airbnb systems for them. So there are a lot of real estate investors who recognize that short-term rentals are a great cash flow machine, but they don't have the time. So where I come in is I step in, I handle all the operations for them. I can even help them do the entire setup, which I've done a few times now, and bring in the design team, the installation team. We get everything set up. We then go live, after the cleaners, photographers have been in there, and then I just do the operations for them on their behalf. And then I just do that for a commission off of the gross revenue that we're actually generating for them. So in both cases, it works out really well. I really like the arbitrage space. I've been doing that now for 2 solid years. I started doing management at first, so it sounded good, but really arbitrage is where I do make the most of my revenue and profits. So that's a good thing.
Awesome, awesome. And so what deal are we going to be talking about today? Anyone specific?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 that I brought, and I can easily show you off of my computer screen as well what they kind of look like. So the first deal that I did both of these are arbitrage units. This one is a little bit different because I had just closed down an Airbnb unit. It was underperforming. It was kind of an older one, and it just needed to be retired. So I wound up closing that one down. I collected all the furniture, repurposed it into this other unit. So to give you some numbers, because I know this is what this show is all about, I was able to negotiate a really good set of terms. So first of all, the rent, it's a 2-bedroom basement apartment unit that I was able to rent for $1,850 all in. No utilities, no extra fees, nothing, just $1,850 a month.
That's
And
amazing.
I was able to also negotiate when I spoke to the owner. He kind of understood. He's been sitting on that unit for a year without making any revenue. And I said, well, it's already been a year. What's the matter if it's 1 more month? Why don't you let me come in, make my revenue, and then I'll be able to pay you rent. So I started this unit at the beginning of June, and I didn't pay rent until the 1st of July. So I was able to make an entire month of revenue off of this place without actually putting in. I think I spent maybe about $500, if that, on supplies, a few extra pieces of art, and a couple of small bits of furniture. But everything else was repurposed from another unit. So this is kind of like, this is a bit of a wild card or a unicorn deal in my eyes. But I'm just going to switch my camera. And
Give actually the viewers an idea of how much it would have cost since you repurposed some of that. How much did it cost you in the other property to furnish it?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over the other property and the numbers that I have for that. So a property like this, normally I go by a simple rule of thumb. So if this was $1,850, so let's just say just shy of $2,000, I would normally spend between $4,000 to $6,000 to furnish this unit. So the furniture I already had was already in that price range, but I also had a few other pieces from, like, I don't know, like Value Village or thrift stores. I had some stuff off of Facebook Marketplace. So I probably was maybe all in $4,000, $4,500 with all the furniture, and then I spent an extra $500 just getting all the final bits for it so I could launch, and also the photography was part of that. So maybe pushing it, I was probably in for about the value of $5,000. I've already paid off the furniture a while ago with the other unit, but now, so this is almost a complete profit play that I was able to make.
It's amazing.
So one of the things that I use is what's called a channel manager. This allows me to not only get onto my listings onto multiple platforms. Like right now I'm on Airbnb, I'm on Vrbo, VRBO, and I'm also on Google Travel, which is a brand new platform that's really exciting to get on, because Google Travel, everybody's looking up on Google for locations to rent, and I'm in this vacation rental category. And when I get a booking, it's a direct booking. So they're going through getting my, they have to sign a contract, supply me with some ID. So I really know who's in there beforehand. And I can do a lot more vetting than what I can do on the other platforms. but I also get to keep extra revenue. So I'm not paying for a third-party marketing platform like Airbnb is. So I get to keep an extra like 14, 15% every booking. And I already have my first booking. I only listed it 2 weeks ago and already happened. So I'm pretty excited by this.
That's
But anyway,
amazing.
the channel manager, what it also does, it has a bunch of different financial tools. So I actually have this one showing already, I pulled it up so I can show you just exactly how much revenue I made for the month of June. And I think you'll be surprised at how well this is done. And I think my first booking came in on the 2nd of June. So I'm just going to put my camera around here. So this is host away. As you can see here, the month, where is it? The months here for the month of June. I had a 60% occupancy rate, which was not the greatest. But that right there, my friends, is the rental revenue after paying $18.50 in July. So I've actually paid that out of this revenue, right? $32.79. I paid that out of the revenue I've made. So everything, I don't know what the math is on that, but what's that? $1,400. After I paid July rent, I'm already ahead $3,200, or subtracting that $18.50, I'm already ahead $1,400.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. And so, did you want to talk about the other one first, or
Yeah,
do you want to talk about like
yeah.
what you've gone through so far with this one?
Well, I do want to talk about the other one because this is a little bit different, and I'd be able to show you a little bit more about this. So this is in downtown Kitchener. There's brand new condo developments all over the place, and in this place called Station Park, they allow for it's a condominium that allows for short-term rentals. When you could originally purchase your property, you could actually buy a $5,000 license that allows you to do a short-term rental in there. So without that license, you cannot operate because I have to go through their main concierge desk and register all my guests. So if I'm not registered, I don't even get into the system. So I actually have two, and I'm possibly getting a third unit in that building, which is great for efficiency. And I'm also going to show you my June numbers because I launched right after the other one that I just showed you. So this, again, it's a 2-bedroom unit in a condo. However, this condo is like super high tech, tons of amenities. It's got a gym, a Peloton room, swim spas. It's got a bowling alley. It has barbecues and fire pits and everything else, like beautiful area. Altogether. And this is going to be a very exciting place to be over the next couple of years as more development. They're building 3 more towers as part of this complex. There's going to eventually be more restaurants, more shops. There's going to be a grocery store. So it's going to be an all-in-one kind of community that they're actually building. So this is going to be
And do you purposely pick 2 bedrooms for a reason, or it just happened to be that both examples happen to be 2 bedrooms?
They just both happen to be 2 bedrooms. In the same building, my other unit is a 1-bedroom, and then the third one I'm talking with is a 1-bedroom plus den. However, a lot of the apartments, when I'm working with apartments or with homeowners, I do like larger properties, like 3, 4 bedrooms or higher, because the profit margins I have on those is actually quite substantial. But when I'm looking at scaling, like here in Kitchener, I have like 15 units just in Kitchener alone. It's easier to do the apartments in a close, localized area because I can build some efficiency. If I'm having a cleaner going out, they can do 2 apartments in the same area, in the same building on the same day. Whereas rather than driving around town, it's going to take you, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get around to do that. So I'm looking for those different opportunities to build efficiency systems into my business. So having the apartments makes sense. But yeah, in this example, they just both happen to be 2 bedrooms.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So for this one, here, I'll swap the camera around. There you go. It's June. I actually had better occupancy at 70%. The numbers here, 3470. Now the rent that I have on this place is 2150. So again, I'm still ahead on this property where I'm actually what's that, like, I don't know, math class is tough. Whatever it is, it's like $1,500 or whatever that I'm making. Now I did have to pay on this one first and last month's rent. I'm also in for a parking spot, and I think I have hydro, but the hydro in that building is minuscule. And most, like in this type of a unit, all I'm paying for really is for the television and the appliances to be plugged in. There's not that much that's going on in the unit itself, not tons and tons of space or other alternative things that I have plugged in. But to give you an idea of the numbers on this one, the furniture that I had, I actually went all out because I do believe that this is an executive rental. Now, I didn't pull up the photos of these places, but you would see there's a significant difference in the quality of the just the design and the layout. So the other one's kind of like a repurposed design. That's why I had to go out and spend a few dollars just to add to the design elements that were there. This other place, though, the one I'm just showing you, top to bottom, I hired a design team. They did an amazing job. So if you ever want, since we're on Instagram, I'll give them a plug at Pink Wall Designs. They did an amazing job just setting it up as an executive rental. So they went with this black, brown, and gold theme throughout. I think it's black, white. No, there's green. Sorry, black, green, and gold. Anyway, it's just a wonderful color palette to use to make you feel like you're walking into something different, something special. We put up wallpaper in there. Hint, if you actually ever run an Airbnb, your competition is everybody else in that city. So I looked around at every single other operator in that building, only to find that they all had the same colors. They had the same white walls, right? Or beige, taupe, whatever you want to call it. They have the same whitish gray walls. They had the same neutral tones, grays, blues. They had a little pop of color. And I said, we got to do something different here, because in the short-term rental world, the very first piece of marketing that is by far the most important is the hero photo. So my hero photo has to stand out beyond what everybody else is. So when you're looking at these, and whether you're scrolling through on your phone or looking at your desktop computer, when you're looking at all these listings, they all kind of look the same after a while. So I went with this black and green, like it's a wallpaper that we put on the walls that's black and green. It looks like plants. I don't know, some kind of tropical plant, and it looks so different when you're scrolling through the pictures, the images, that it stands out, and it's like, oh, that's different. That's cool. I'm going to click on that. And by you tapping on it, clicking on it, whatever it is, that now shows Airbnb that you're more interesting than anybody else. So they have this thing called the interest algorithm. And this is how I play that game, is my photos have to stand out so that people click on it. And by clicking on it, reading through, and by booking, the whole conversion process is that now so much easier. And then because I get booked, I'm more likely to be booked in the future. So it's kind of like you build this snowball that works on itself. So in the first month, my occupancy rate on this one, 70%. I'm already doing better for July at my current rate. Same with the other unit that I just showed you. They were both launched this summer. Within the past.
And so I think I missed it though. How much was, so with the, because that one you fully purchased everything.
Yeah.
And you probably, so what was the budget? And you got a designer. So like how much did you altogether pay for that one?
Yeah, so furnishing and design all in was probably, and I went all out. I spent a little bit more. I think I was all in for between $8,000 and $8,500. So I think that, to me, the design fee that I had paid was that's the investment into the property, same as the furniture. But I do believe it might take me a little bit longer in order to pay off the furniture in that property. Usually it takes me, 6 to 10 months roughly to pay off furniture. But I do believe that this will actually pay dividends long term. So the furniture is higher quality than well, I wouldn't say than what I normally get, but it's high quality furniture, very durable. It's going to last for a while. But it's also looks so different that it's going to be a bigger improvement over a lot of other locations that I have.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear. And like that, it's always good with experience. You start learning, like you said, which ones you're willing to put more money down on because you see the potential and what it can do for you compared to others where, like you say, you just repurposed furniture and even went to, which is also nice because if I think we're on a budget, it's nice to be able to, like you said, go to Valley Village or go to these places and be able to grab some stuff just so you're not killing your budget too.
Well, and that's always sort of that fine line is what's in your budget, but what's also in your timeline. Because every day that passes by is potentially like, on this place, my average daily rate was $112. That's because I was launching at a very low price. And some of my other nights were much higher, but if my average daily rate or my ADR is $112, that means I'm losing out on $100 a day by not being booked. So I might be able to go out to Facebook Marketplace, Value Village, and go hit all these shops and thrift stores, and I can get a place furnished for, say, $2,500. But on the other hand, if I've done that and it took me 2 months to get there, that means I've lost out on $3,000 to $6,000 of revenue. Was that really saving money? So I have to look at that as well. So it becomes that fine line between how quick I can get it. Now, when you're purchasing furniture brand new, it's going to take a month to maybe 6 weeks, depending on delivery times. So that's also a challenge. It's like, how much do I believe in this project? How much am I going to invest into it? It makes more sense. And honestly, it makes more sense in a situation like this if I had not done what I did, because I would spend it like so I have, for instance, 6 properties, soon to be 7, down in Phoenix, Arizona. Those properties, I hired the same design team. They helped me out, but I was able to spread that out over the cost of 6 of those properties, and it was the similar design all the way through. So I was able to kind of make that spend a little bit more efficient, and it also allowed me to furnish 6 places all at once. So with a place like this where I only did it with 1 property, it's still an investment in my mind that it's going to pay dividends. But if I are like, I could have done a repurpose build from another listing with some other furniture, but would it have the same impact? And considering that this is like an executive level, super high-end condominium, I wanted to stand out. So I do believe that this investment made a lot of sense. But for scalability, I'd probably do the same thing, but only if I had like 4 units, for like 3 or 4 apartments in the same place.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's always, and it's like you said, right? You saw the potential in that one because it was just had so many amenities in there that you just saw that you could probably make a lot more money with spending a lot more money with it. So with these projects that you've gone through so far, what are the kind of problems that you've experienced with them?
Well, just on the installation side, delays on furniture arriving broken or doesn't arrive at all, even though they say it was delivered. Porch pirates, always a concern. I haven't really had too many problems with that. delivery logistics, like the logistics of getting all that stuff in. I used my own garage as a shipping point, so I had everything delivered to one location because everything comes in on different days. So you need to have it all delivered to one location, and then you do your build in one day. So then you have to get your installation team to come in and help you build everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, honestly, probably the one that frustrates me the most, or is the hardest one to deal with, is just the amount of garbage and recycling created. Unfortunately, this is not a business about sustainability. This is a business of building furniture and putting it in place, and you're making some revenue. So you really have to have good processes in place for how to get rid of a million boxes. And I do mean a million. It's a lot of boxes. So if you think of it, like people ask me what I do for a living, and I say I play house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just sit there and I build houses, like the inside of all the furniture and everything else that goes into it, the guest experience, what people are going to see, do, feel while they're in the property. And the downside is like when you buy something at IKEA, you have one box. It's like, yeah, I'll put that in the recycling. But when you have 1,000 boxes, you can't put that all in the recycling all at the same time.
Exactly. And it's funny because it's these little things that I think when you're getting started that you don't really think about. You know, for example, like I said, like the amount of garbage that comes, or like you were saying, the delays that can happen for you even getting the property on the market because you're waiting for everything to come in, or there's a delay that happens, and so there's all these little things just at the beginning that can happen.
Yeah. And each one, I mean, like once all your furniture is in place, you still got to get a cleaner out there. So while you're frantically building everything, you're also, unless we already have cleaners in that area, if it's a new area, then obviously you need to find a cleaner who knows Airbnbs, who is experienced, who you can train into your processes. And then after that, you still have to get the photography. So you're trying to like, you have kind of a moving target, but you're trying to arrange all these third-party contractors to come in and help you out with all of this too. Like I always hire my photography because I'm on my phone. My phone, I don't think has any great shakes of a camera. You really want to get HDR photography, and then you have to edit the photos afterwards. I don't have time for that. I'm going to hire somebody else to do it. But some people might want to do it themselves, and that's totally fine. Right? Everybody has to find their own groove, their own niche that they're going to work in. But every single one of these components, from getting the furniture to the design to the installation to the cleaner to the photographer, everything is a moving piece that you don't really have that much control over. So everything can go wrong. And I've had a few projects now where everything has gone wrong, where I had to switch the cleaner out. My cleaner was fired before they even started. I've had photographers who showed up and didn't know one end of the camera from the other, you know, and even though their portfolio looked amazing, I wonder if they just downloaded everything off of Google. But yeah, everything that can go wrong, and eventually if you do enough of these, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And you just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah, and I think I guess once as you go through them, you probably start you probably start seeing, for example, with people, you know, like who you start kind of like learning who are the ones that are good at work, doing their job and others that aren't probably. Like you probably start gaining a bit of intuition with what they say or how they behave, I guess, to even start just like picking them from what you saw last time.
Yeah, and I mean, like for instance, you can always so working in video games for 20 years, one of the things that I always did when I was hiring employees is that I would always provide them with a test. So it's easy enough if you're hiring an installation crew. It's like, okay, put together this thing, whatever, you know, it's a small thing that needs assembly. You disassemble it, give them all the pieces. See if, and I'm looking for, are they looking for the instructions? Do they have their own tools? Do they actually come with some kind of knowledge of, oh, I've done this before? Or is this, you know, brand new to them? You know, like say a platform bed frame that I'm going to order off of, say, Amazon or Wayfair, usually takes about half an hour, 45 minutes to install. And I can tell within the first 10 minutes, If they're still unpacking in 10 minutes, they're not going to work out. They actually have to be unpacked, laid out, have everything ready to go and assemble in about a 10-minute time frame. But if they're still trying to figure out what's what and how to piece it all together, and there's still things wrapped in plastic or whatnot, I know that they're not going to work out.
Yeah. And like you said, it's from practice. So I think even I just want to reiterate to those watching is that, like that the problems come up. And I think it's really all about what you're saying is like learning from your mistakes and, improving for the next time. Because like you said, things will always go wrong, especially, I mean, if we're running it as a business. You're going to be doing it the longer you do it, the more chances that you're going to get to learn like a lot of different things that can go wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like early on in my life, I was reading all about how to build a business plan. And everybody thinks that a business plan is all about how the day-to-day structure of the business is going to work, how you go from A to B. But as we all know, the path to success is not a straight line up. It's this curvy, wild ride all the way up, and it's so many ups and downs to go in that upward direction as the trend. And I think of a business plan is not there to tell you how to run your business. It's there to tell you how to recover when basically shit goes wrong. And that's the thing, is like, no matter what your business is, it could be doing flips, it could be doing buy and holds, multifamily strategies, whatever it is, Airbnbs. There's so many areas where things go wrong. How do you deal with that? And that's where people don't prepare themselves. So fortunately, I've made enough mistakes. Some of them were intentional, some of them were not. And you learn from those mistakes along the way.
100%. Curious actually, because you said it. So what was like an intentional mistake that you did?
So here's the wildest one I ever did. In Airbnb, they actually have a policy to have no parties. I also uphold a no party policy. However, I figured I needed to learn how to evict somebody if a party was going to happen. So I do a fairly deep dive. Airbnb has changed how to vet a guest in advance prior to them arriving. But back in the day, I could actually see the guest's profile. Now, most of the days, most people are new, or the new system that they have doesn't really show all that much. But I could tell that this was a local university student who was coming in at the end of August. So if you put two and two together, local university student, even though he lived outside in another city, coming at the end of August means he was here for a party right before they went back to school. So I already knew it was had a very high potential for a party to happen, especially when he booked in for, I forget, it was like 8 or 12 people. It was a big house that I was putting people up in. So I intentionally allowed them to come. I would have normally said no, saying, no, it sounds like you're going to have a party, I'm out of here. But instead, I allowed it to happen so that I could actually figure out how to evict a guest if a party was to occur. Now, here's the crazy thing. If I was to do that with a long-term tenant, it would take, how long would, actually, I'll ask you, how long does it take to evict somebody?
You know where we're at right now? It's like, I'm very confused because it went back to 6 months, now it's back to 15 months, so it's not good.
Yeah, it's never good, right? It took me 3 hours. 3 hours to say, hey, you're having a party. I have a noise detection device that proves that the noise is out of hand. I have cameras that prove that you're drinking on the front lawn and public nudity was involved. I think we have enough grounds to say you're having a party. Oh, and I also went back into the camera history and made sure I had this saved. They were bringing in cases of beer, cases of alcohol, balloons, everything else. And at one point, I even called it out. I said, you guys are having a party. Oh, no, we're not having a party. We're having a birthday celebration. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's called a birthday party. And I was able to get them out. It was very quick. I knew what I needed to do, but I intentionally made that mistake. I intentionally let it happen where normally I wouldn't have, but I wanted to go through the experience of what would happen if I do this. Now, that was a very intentional moment. Other mistakes
Mhm.
that I've made is, oh, I'll build this furniture myself, right? That's always the worst thing I have ever said.
Yeah.
It's so much
Like it
easier
takes
when
you a
you,
full day and you haven't even gone halfway through. You're like, that wasn't a good decision.
yeah, exactly. It's like, I really need help now. And you start calling everybody on TaskRabbit and find out nobody's available for 3 more days. Meanwhile, I could have had it booked up before. But anyway, those are other mistakes that I've made.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, I would say, and honestly, that again, it's one of those things that speaks to every business is you can't do everything yourself. I have a whole team of
100%.
people behind me that help me with communications, help me. I have contractors on call. I have cleaners on call. I have a pretty substantial team of people who help me out with all of the units that I have all over the world at the moment, or
Mhm.
North America at least. Take over the world next year.
That's amazing. And it's true. And it's scalable, right? Because basically you're building up these teams so that you can actually go bigger. Because with one person, there's only so much we can take on our own. And with teams, it definitely helps you be able to scale. And scale up because you have a lot of units, right? How many units are you doing? I forget. You're like in the 20s or
I'm
30s or something like
in the
that.
30s now, but I'm shutting down. I'm actually selling the house that I started all of my work with. Funny enough, I was actually signing the paperwork for the sale of the house right before this call.
Mm.
But I am, I don't know, I'll just give it a rough estimate, probably around 35-ish.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And imagine you doing it on your own. I think that would be traumatizing. I
I,
don't think
I
you'd
would,
make it there, but I
I
think it'd
would
be
be broken.
traumatizing.
My wife would divorce me as well. So, um, like, really, when it comes to doing this, it's you can do it like one by yourself, no problem. It's barely even a sweat. It barely even moves the needle. You have a few like a few chats here and there. I was able to do it while working a full-time job. Two, you can still do it. Three, it's getting to be a little bit much because now you're thinking, where are these things in this place versus this place? And that's where you have to start building your processes. I would say
Hmm.
you have to build your processes before you even start your first one, but you have to learn by doing as well. But by the time you hit your third one, like I reached five and I was barely able to keep my head above water. And then that's where the processes were starting to help me out.
Hmm.
And
And it's
but
great that
now,
you have to continue to scale because I see what happened with a lot of people is, for example, either you get to five and you scale down because it's too much, or you try to manage with five but just stay stuck there because a lot of people don't realize like that, like the importance of a team that is involved to like make everything happen and help you grow.
hmm yeah, and that's the thing. Like this is technically an infinitely scalable business because all I need are more team members in order to help that, and it becomes very efficient over time. Like I have three VAs, virtual assistants, who help out with all my communications. They're covering the whole week for me. I never really have to get involved unless if they get to a point where they can't answer a question or they need help identifying something, and then I'll step in and I'm kind of a level two support that I do on that side.
A good
But
IT way of putting it, right?
exactly. But yeah, really otherwise, we use a lot of different tools. It's funny, I've actually brought on somebody to help me out a little bit with the managing the operations, like more of the strategic level thinking required to streamline all the operations. And she even said, like, wow, you have a lot of tools that you use. I'm like, yep, because the short-term rental industry is still so new that I have to use Airbnb, Verbo, Google Travel. I have to use WhatsApp, Slack, Price Labs, which is a dynamic pricing tool, Remote Lock, which allows me to dynamically change codes on my locks remotely from anywhere in the world. I'm using probably half a dozen other tools that I haven't even thought of yet and they're all integrated in. And it just makes sense to do all this. But again, I have specialized people to handle specialized tasks.
100%. And so any other things that you'd like to mention about problems that you'd encountered on in your projects?
Well, I think the most important one, especially because we're talking about numbers, the due diligence has to be done. And I've seen a lot of people, and even when I started, I was like, yeah, it looks like it'll work. I had no idea.
Cross fingers.
Well, and I got lucky time and time again, I'll tell you the truth. The weirdest place that I ever had work was basically nothing other than a box on top of a wagon that we called a tiny home. It had a sink and a weird shower, and that was about it. And I was able to generate just a ton of revenue off of that, where the guy even said, I don't think you can make me $500. In a month, I turned around and I said, well, do you want me to keep the $2,000 check that I have for you? I'll give you $500. I'll keep the rest. So he was very happy with that. But really doing the due diligence to actually understand the market, what your competition is doing. And this is where it's getting a lot more competitive now. After 2001, we had a lot of revenge travel. So we had a lot of people who were traveling because they were locked up for a year and a bit, right? So then all of a sudden you had all these people traveling all over the place. Well, people were making money in short-term rentals hand over fist. So a lot of these real estate investors said, wow, I can make a lot of money doing short-term rentals. So of course I'm going to convert everything I have to a short-term rental. The problem with that is that it actually created an oversupply. And then combined with that oversupply, we hit two things. We hit winter, which is always a slow season in Canada. I mean, who wants to go travel in February? But we also hit basically a recession this year. Right at the beginning of the year, the market changed, and we started seeing inflation go sky high. Our dollar is not going as far. So where are people going to pull back on their discretionary spending, such as with travel? And therefore, we've had a double whammy of negativity. And now all these people who converted their properties into short-term rentals wound up seeing nothing except tumbleweeds in their calendars for all the reservations. So it's really important. This is one of the things that I'm going to just toot my own horn, and people can hear this as a pitch, where you get somebody like myself who can actually manage it and know that in the long run, yes, I can turn your property into just a cash flow machine if it fits the bill, if it actually has the capacity for that in that area. But in addition to that, it's a long game, because I've had a number of management clients who launch their units in the fall or in the winter, and it's like, you do realize you're not going to see any money until June or July. You're going to be sitting in the red, and then July, August, September, that's going to cover you for the past and for the future, because a lot more money can be made in short-term rentals than with long-term, but you have to be aware of the cycles and the seasons. So there is a huge kind of learning curve on that side. Whereas, I mean, if I have a long-term rental, I make the same amount in January as I do in July. If I have a short-term rental, I'm probably making at least 2 or 3 times the amount in July of what I did in January.
100%. Yeah, I love that advice. It is very good, because it's very true. A lot of people go into things. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it's good, but then start learning.
Yeah.
Or then start getting the information. Because that will only work so long, and then afterwards, then it starts like a downhill trend. But curious on your opinion, you're talking about, we were going into a recession, and you bought this, you're renting out this executive suite. what made you feel like comfortable to spend that kind of money? Because, like you said, we are in the recession, and I mean, we don't know. Things are still in a unstable state that we even don't know. So, what gave you? How did you give yourself confidence to go for that executive suite?
So the confidence really comes in that I'm an above average performer when it comes to short-term rentals. Anytime I look at, say, AirDNA, which is, for anybody who's not aware, it's a platform where you can actually get an idea of how a property can perform. It uses a lot of historical data, 12 months of historical data from a very close range for where that property is. I knew that this property has long-term potential. I knew that the area was growing in terms of the short term, and it didn't have a full 12-month range. So I have a specific way of analyzing properties where it's a lot of like grunt work that goes into it. And this is, even though most of my things in my business can be automated, the analysis is actually better if I do it by hand. And the analysis just showed that, yeah, they're like in, with less than 12 months, yes, it is a successful business. I also know that, as things are going to be changing in across Ontario, we're seeing every municipality adding in regulations. Now, I don't know what's going on here in Kitchener. We just had a request for a public consult. So I filled out a survey, probably a couple of times, an anonymous survey just talking about like how it affects the local area. And I'll be the first one to go get in line and get myself licenses for all of my properties because I know that I'm still making money on them. But I do believe that the Kitchener area actually will allow short-term rentals to exist because there's such an integral part, and this is where people get upset with me when they hear about the long-term renters who are complaining about short-term rentals and the draw following, or like coming off of the rental market, right? The numbers that are in there. The thing is, I'm seeing a lot of like new immigrants. I've housed a ton of refugees from the Ukraine recently. We're seeing a lot of people who are needing short-term stays because they have no idea what it's like here in Canada. They're coming in saying, oh yeah, I'll find a place to rent. I only need your place for a couple of months or a couple of weeks. And it turns out they stay with me for a couple of months because they can't find anything. They're new immigrants. They don't have a credit score. They don't have a job yet. Maybe they're only going to school. They have the cash coming in to do all this stuff, but they don't have the capacity to get a decent rental place. So I'm providing a definite need for these people when they're coming in. Now, of course, we're also seeing people who are traveling for personal reasons, vacation, whatever it is. I'm also seeing people traveling for work where they don't want to get a hotel. For instance, I've have a connection with this one company. They put in a number of people who are there because they book in for 6 to 8 people at a time, and they'll all sleep wherever, and they'll have their own separate beds or whatnot, or share beds, but they don't have to get like 4 hotel rooms or 6 hotel rooms. They get a house because it's a lot more affordable. The dollar for everyone is getting stretched so thin. The higher inflation goes, people are trying to find those alternative ways of where do I save money.
Yeah, very true. And I'm actually curious because I don't know the answer to this, and you said it, so I'm curious to hear what you say about it. Because you're saying so there's like a bit of rivalry between the long-term people like landlords that do long-term to short-term. Because I do
No,
long-term, and I was like, I don't have any beef with the short-term, so I was curious
yeah,
to
I
hear
don't
your
mean
opinion on what
the
you heard.
landlords. I'm actually referring to the, instead of the landlords, I'm referring to the tenants. So the
Ah,
tenants are complaining, saying that it's the short-term rental market which is driving up the rental prices. I'm not
Mm.
subtracting inventory. Like, yes, there is an inventory that's being subtracted, but that's not causing such a significant rise in rental rates. It's the variable interest rate mortgages or a mortgage that's going to get locked in at a higher rate. I know I have two mortgages that are coming up in 2024. I'm hoping the mortgage rates will come down so I can get in a better deal, or I just lock in at a 1 year rate knowing I'm going to lock it down in the following year. But at the same
Mm.
time, it is an issue when you take a look at pretty much any city across Ontario where, like here in Kitchener, I think there's 1,037 short-term rental units on the market.
Mhm.
So that's 1,000 places that people don't have to live. So it is a credible number that you can look at as inventory being removed from the rental market. Vacancy rates are at an all-time low, right? Because there's nothing available. Everything's booked out. You can be way pickier as a landlord over compared to any other time where, but as well, the government is not investing into new housing. They got out of that business, what, 50 years ago? 40, 50
Mhm.
years ago. And the numbers just show that rental rates are now sky high. And it also affects the housing rates. I mean, if there was, what, like 100,000 more houses in Ontario, that might tip the bucket a little bit in terms of the housing, the price in the housing market right now. But we're not catching up. We're falling further and further behind, which means that anybody who wants to get into buying a property, being a long-term or short-term landlord, now will be able to speculate on equity because they just think that over the next few years it's going to go higher and higher. No, right now is a great time if you have property, and it's a horrible time if you don't.
I completely agree with you. And it's very, I find actually what you're saying about the tenants, now I can see that making sense. Although at the same time, I don't know, I feel like people like to just complain, like to make any excuse for anything because